So I would like to introduce Congressman Tom Emmer, for those of you who don't know. He is the majority whip in the U.S. House of Representatives, which means he's sort of the number 3 ranking Republican and has the job of trying to corral people together to get them behind the votes, which is no easy job. And I think most importantly for the crypto community, he sits on the House Financial Services Committee, which of course has a huge role to play in the regulation and legislation that is being developed. So I do want to get into the work of the committee in a little bit, but first, let's talk about the election. I think every time I hear you speak, you talk about crypto issues being nonpartisan issues. Can you talk a little bit about your sort of nonpartisan approach and the meaning of the elections? Because I know when I talk to people in industry, everybody has a lot of anxiety in trying to figure out who's winning the House and the Senate and the White House.
Well, it's a great question, and you're right. This issue is nonpartisan, and it needs to stay nonpartisan. But that doesn't mean that you have to figure out who your friends are, who are forward thinkers, and who are those that want the status quo, the central top-down authority to remain. In this case, when Trump was in the last time, we had some friends, right? We had Brian Brooks, we had Hester Peirce, we had Chris Giancarlo. We had some friends, but it wasn't overwhelmingly in favor of what we were trying to do. In this administration, we thought it was going to get better. It hasn't. It got worse. In fact, they seem to be following the lead of the senator from Massachusetts, who shall go unnamed, who claims to be the anti-crypto army. So politically, this is the pitch that we have made, because we've got one candidate who has evolved and who understands now the dangers of a central bank digital currency, who understands the opportunity that the 21st century digital economy provides, not just to his people, but to everybody. And he wants to be involved in it. So you've seen this evolution where it isn't just lip service. I will be your crypto president. Why is that? And then you see the other side now trying to catch up and tell you, oh no, we'll be much better at this going forward. Here's why. As we've tried to explain, if you're my age, I'm in my 60s, you're probably invested in crypto or digital assets as an investment tool. But if you're 18 to 40, most of you are in it because it's not just about making money. It actually isn't about making money. It's about making the world a better place. And it's really an interesting dynamic. It doesn't matter in that age group, 18 to 40, whether you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, or something else. Everybody believes in the same thing. I should be free to make my own decisions. I should be in a peer-to-peer society where I don't need this top-down control telling me who I can do things with, what I can do, and how much I can do. So you literally have one side that has figured out there's a group 18 to 40. This is their main issue, and this is what they're going to vote on. And I think what happened in the White House, and it started with Biden probably earlier this summer, I think their numbers started to show them, you guys are on the wrong side of this issue. And so now they're desperately trying to come around, but they got a problem. I mean, not only do you have the senator from Massachusetts, but you have Gary Gensler, who has been a one-man bully trying to browbeat and slap the digital assets community right out of this country. And you got Michael Sue. Brian Brooks gave fair access rule when he was there so that digital asset businesses would have fair access to financial services in this country. And Michael Sue ended it on the first day. And there are more examples down the road. So it's one of those where I am hyper-focused on making sure this isn't a Republican or Democrat issue, but it's about recognizing who actually is going to be our friend as we try to advance this ball. We made some baby steps this Congress with divided government. My hope is if my side wins, we've got them set up so that we can literally start advancing digital asset legislation so we can create the playing field, the rules of the road, so people know, all right, I want to invest, I want to grow right here in the United States of America.
No, I love that. I think you said something very interesting, though. We've seen in polling that 1 in 5 voters in swing states considers cryptocurrency an important issue in the election. And I just saw yesterday some polling that's going to be released this week that has even stronger numbers on that front. And I think when I've spoken with some skeptics, they've said there's no way that people care that much about crypto policy. They're not following it. And I think what you said is absolutely right. It's sort of this core feeling that the system has let you down. And maybe crypto isn't the perfect solution today, but it's an attempt to try to fix the shortcomings. And I think it's powerful. I don't know, do you ever hear from your constituents about crypto policy when you're home in Minnesota?
All the time. They are extremely, the financial services community, the SOB 121, that was such a terrible rule that they allowed to stand, where everyone in the banking community can't custody digital assets. My financial people all want to be able to get involved. My investors, my entrepreneurs, the young people that this is what they've grown up with over the last 20 years is being in the internet and building relationships. I mean, my kids do it completely different the way I did. I had to pick up the phone, dial it, call, and try to see somebody on Thursday and, hey, I'll meet you at the party. These guys are online, and they're building their relationships real time right online. So I think it's all about liberty and freedom. It doesn't matter what your political persuasion is in this country, despite all of our differences and despite how we want to attack each other all the time. When it comes down to the most basic thing, I want to be the boss of me. Right? It's my 2-year-olds, every time one of my kids got to be 2, and some of you probably have experienced it, they would put their hands on their hips and they'd say, "You're not the boss of me." Well, that's kind of like I feel our government has been telling us what we can and can't do. The beauty and the opportunity of the 21st century digital age is literally about blowing up and decentralizing all of this top-down control. And I think that excites Americans regardless of what their politics are.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, because that really, those anecdotes make sense for the polling that we're seeing in the field. Let's pivot a little bit. The House Financial Services Committee, hugely important, had a very big year passing a first go-around at market structure legislation, SAB 121. But the committee also serves, I think, a really important role, and that is providing oversight of the federal agencies. And last week, you guys had a very unique hearing where you actually had all 5 SEC commissioners before the committee. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what was discussed and how the commission was received by the House Financial Services Committee?
Well, if anybody, first off, Kristin, you probably know this. I don't know if the people here do. When you're in one of the top 3 leadership positions in the House, you can suspend your committee activity because you're going to be too busy with your other activities. And I said not only no, I said hell no. I've been working on this for years. I'm not walking away from it now. So I've stayed on the committee, and Patrick McHenry has been great about giving me my opportunities to do what I got to do. So last week, my focus was on the guy who's been the single most destructive force in our country, and that's Gary Gensler. You got to just keep calling him out. I had one of my Democrat colleagues, by the way, Gary Gensler has done something that not many people in government do right now. He has united both Republicans and Democrats against him. Richie Torres was great. I don't know if New York's own Richie Torres, I loved his thing about, Chair Gensler. You like to say that every token is a security. Everything in the digital space is a security. Well, you are creating NFTs with tickets, right, and art and other things. So I loved it. He pulled out a Yankees ticket. He said, "Mr. Chair, is this Yankees ticket a security?" I couldn't answer it. That's because Gary Gensler has been running a small fiefdom on his own. He decides who gets to play and who doesn't get to play. And the only reason that we saw movement out of his agency in the last year is because he kept losing his foolish lawsuits. I mean, he even made up legal terms that have no meaning in order to try and carry out this fraud that he's been doing. But I had one of the Democrats who was trying to say, "Thank you, Chair Gensler, for making this hearing so boring because you've been doing such a good job." And it's like, Juan, where have you been? And by the way, it wasn't a very boring hearing after that. But it is an important thing, and the House is going to have to reclaim its power of the purse. When you have renegade bureaucrats like Gary Gensler, you need to bring him back under control. And you do that by doing what? By taking his money away. We haven't done it in 30 years. And I think, again, that's another thing that you'll see in the next Congress, assuming I'm right about how the election's going to turn out. And my hope is, if I'm wrong about how the election is turning out, well, then guess what? My Democrat friends and colleagues, I think a lot of them are fed up with this too.
Yeah.
And it's time to get this thing working again. I think about the fact that I have 7 kids. The oldest is 33. The youngest is about to turn 23. They have never seen government work in their lifetime, ever.
That's a lot of kids. Well, we only have a few minutes left, but legislation. So there's a lot of interest in trying to find appropriate market structure legislation, which is tricky to do. You and I have had this conversation. We don't want to do it incorrectly, but we probably need something there. And then stablecoin legislation. That's something else the committee has considered. Do we think there's potential for any activity in the lame duck, or is this the next year, or maybe a little bit of both?
I think a little bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, we just passed a continuing resolution that sent everybody out into their districts to now campaign for the next month, and we'll be back in November. That continuing resolution expires in December. I think it's December 20th. You're going to have to figure out how to fund the government on or before December 20th, and that's what they talk about in the legislative process. That's when they're making the sausage. You know, what is going to be in it, what's going to be part of it, and I would not underestimate Patrick McHenry. I know my friends on the Senate side like to claim that they're the ones that have been moving this stuff. Yeah, they got great ideas, but they haven't done anything. They've just had ideas. They put some stuff on paper, but again, they haven't passed anything. They haven't moved anything. Patrick McHenry moved a market structure bill through the House. Even Nancy Pelosi voted for it, which somebody said it's probably because she's a really smart investor, but and it is meant to be funny. It had a bipartisan support. That bill, it may not be perfect, but it's a beginning of something that would start to outline what the different agencies are responsible for, what would be under the purview of the Securities and Exchange Commission, what would be under the purview of the CFTC, and the list goes on and on. If anything has a chance, that does. But it's going to depend on what the vehicle is at the end of the year, what it looks like, and if there is a grand bargain that's struck. Because Patrick McHenry, if you know him, he's not returning to Congress. This is a signature piece of legislation that I know he would like to get in law as a legacy after he's gone. But even if it doesn't, little of both, next Congress, I think you're going to see even more movement. Let's just assume for a second, for the sake of argument, that Democrats win this election. They're waking up. It's kind of like my Republican colleagues. It took several years, but they came on board, and I think now you've got Democrats who have been looking at this, and they're coming on board. So I think you'll see movement in the next Congress if we don't get something this time. And stablecoins are the most exciting piece of that. By the way, Kristin knows this because we talked about it backstage. I think we did. The problem that we have with this legislation when it gets drafted is people on the inside are drafting it. They are the ones that are looking out at America, Main Street America, all across this country, but they either work for the Treasury or they have worked for the Treasury, they work for the Federal Reserve, or they want to work for the Federal Reserve, or they want to be in a law office somewhere telling you, hey, you got to call me because I know how this law works. The struggle has been these bills, when it comes to digital assets, have to be written from the perspective of the entrepreneur, from the perspective of the investor, from the perspective of the inventor. We need to let people create this, not the government trying to tell you. I mean, and you know, the market structure bill was fixed, but in the beginning it had way too much authority going to the SEC. Big mistake.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm really excited for the end of the year and next year. I do feel like when I started doing this 6 years ago, this was a little startup industry that wasn't taken seriously, and now we've arrived. We're here, and it's pretty awesome. But I would say you've been doing this longer than I have, so I think
9 years.
you were the OG friend we have in Congress. And so we thank you so much for listening and understanding and helping not just the industry, but the whole community be able to take advantage of what this technology has to offer. So
I
thank
appreciate
you,
what you're doing.
Mr. Emmer.
And this whole group and everybody who's involved in this space, thank you. You're going to take this country and this world way forward in the next few years. You've already done it. You've already started it. But hopefully that fuse is going to actually ignite something in the next 3 months, or if not, within the next year or two. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.